This is the Weekly Roundup on the EAC News Channel, your look back at the week that was in the Kingdom of Wonder. A very good evening to you. I'm Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and we begin on Monday, the 25th of October. The National Assembly has turned out a unanimous vote for the Kingdom's constitutional amendments, mandating only Khmer nationality for the country's top office bearers. All 111 members of the National Assembly voted in favour of the amendments on Monday morning. The amendments were initiated by Prime Minister Hun Sen in response to false foreign media reports that he held a Cypriot passport. EAC News reporter Reo Soko has our top story.
All voted yes for only Khmer nationality for the President of the Senate, the President of the National Assembly, the Prime Minister, and the President of the Constitutional Council. Monday morning's plenary session of the National Assembly, presided over by National Assembly President Heng Samrin, has approved amendments to Constitutional Articles 3, 4, and 137. It has also approved the new Articles of 19, 82, 106, and 119. All ensure the normal functioning of national institutions, as well as demonstrate loyalty to the kingdom and avoid any foreign interference. The move was initiated by Prime Minister Hun Sen on 6 October, following a false report in the British newspaper The Guardian, stating that the Prime Minister held a Cypriot passport. The article has since been corrected, and the paper has expressed regret for any stress it caused. After the amendments were approved on Monday, Prime Minister Hun Sen said the door is closed forever for two nationalities for those wanting to hold top positions, especially the post of Prime Minister. The amendments now move to the Senate, where a two-thirds majority is also needed. A vote there is expected as soon as next week. Reyes Soko, EAC News.
As Cambodia prepares to take over the chairmanship of ASEAN next year, Prime Minister Hun Sen has committed to providing full support and facilitation to achieve even more. He delivered a speech during the closing ceremony of the 2021 ASEAN Business and Investment Summit on Monday afternoon, congratulating Brunei for its successful chairmanship of ASEAN across 2021. EAC News reporter Reo Soko has the story. The 2021 ASEAN Business and Investment Summit was joined by ASEAN leaders, dialogue partners, as well as leaders from other countries outside the bloc. Prime Minister Hun Sen expressed his high appreciation for the achievements made under the chairmanship of Brunei in 2021. In 2022, it's the turn of Cambodia. The Prime Minister says Cambodia will continue to enhance the ASEAN economic community, further bolster trade and investment, and strengthen cooperation between ASEAN and its partners, all with the aim of restoring growth and transforming ASEAN into a region of peace, resilience, and development. In his closing remarks, Prime Minister Hun Sen highlighted the impact of the pandemic on the development of ASEAN as a whole, but he stressed that the global economy is expected to recover over the balance of 2021 and throughout 2022. He says accelerating regional and global integration must be one of the top priorities in supporting the post-pandemic recovery and sustainable socio-economic development. He's encouraged ASEAN members to continue to adhere to multilateralism, strengthen globalization, and strive to advance the regional integration agenda in line with ASEAN Vision 2025, aimed at strengthening greater connectivity.
Taking these opportunities, I would like to highlight the roles that private sectors can play so as to contribute to achieving the priority works and work plan of ASEAN 2022 as follows. First, seizing full benefits of the existing ASEAN Free Trade Agreement, especially RCEP, that is planned to enter into force in early 2022 to boost trade and investment activities, particularly foreign direct investment, so as to create jobs, increase income for our people, and stimulate economic growth. Second, contributing to human resource development through the transfers of technologies, knowledge and know-how, particularly the development of digital skills, as well as the enhancement of science, technologies, and innovation through collaboration with business and direct investment from abroad, which would contribute to narrowing the digital gap and developing digital economy in the region. Third, heightening collaboration between public and private sectors, especially through public-private partnership mechanism, aimed at mobilizing financial resources for the development and implementation of various initiatives, as well as for fulfilling the financial needs for sustainable socio-economic recovery.
The Prime Minister says the pandemic has provided important experience and lessons that must be considered and incorporated into policy and reform agendas at both national and regional levels across the bloc. Hoteliers are gearing up for a full reopening of the country's borders to fully vaccinated travellers and have welcomed the interim step of shortening quarantine periods. Last week, the royal government announced that fully vaccinated tourists would only need to quarantine for between 3 and 7 days, depending on their status. And just over the weekend, bans on incoming flights from some countries were lifted. While Cambodia has not yet started to feel the effects of a tourism revival, EAC News asked one Phnom Penh hotel manager what the industry thinks about the changes. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko compiled this report.
In recent days, Cambodia, along with other ASEAN countries, has taken huge strides towards the reopening of its borders. Thailand will open its borders on 1st November to fully vaccinated travelers quarantine-free for a whole list of countries, including Cambodia. Prime Minister Hun Sen wants the kingdom to reciprocate as soon as possible. Government also lifted its ban on flights with immediate effect from Indonesia, Philippines, and Malaysia, a ban that was imposed 15 months ago. While the region gets its flight schedule organized, Cambodia's hotel industry is already preparing to welcome new visitors. EAC News sat down with Baitong Hotel's general manager, Frank Guglielmo. He says government's decision to shorten quarantine periods is a great step.
I think it's a good sign, it's a good first step. Let's see in the next future, in the next few weeks, few months, if you see some real difference and improvement in terms of traffic in the country. Hopefully, all the countries around in Southeast Asia will go in the same direction, so we can see some people from the country around and see a real change. Time will tell.
He says an increase in tourists is all down to the airlines.
It will depend on the airlines company and the countries around, what they decide to do. But what I think, tourists are really eager to travel now. Since almost 2 years, they are staying in their own country and they are really excited, I think, to come back or to come for the first time in this beautiful country of Cambodia. So let's be positive, optimistic, and get ready to welcome all of them.
Fully vaccinated tourists arriving in Cambodia now need to spend only 7 days in quarantine. And if they wish to book their quarantine ahead of time, they also have 2 additional hotels to choose from: Olympia City and Tokyo Inn. Himawari and Raffles Hotel Royal were also recently added to the list of so-called alternative state quarantine hotels in Phnom Penh. Yuri Matosko, EAC News.
Now for a look at news making international headlines this Monday, the 25th of October.
A fire has broken out aboard a cargo ship carrying mining chemicals off British Columbia. The Canadian Coast Guard says 16 crew members have been rescued from the MV Zim Kingston, while 5 remained on board to fight the fire. No injuries were reported by Daniels Shipping Co., the company that manages the container vessel. A navigation warning was issued overnight by the Canadian government, reporting that the ship was on fire and expelling toxic gas. Overnight, a tug cooled the hull of the ship by spraying it with cold water. Due to the nature of the chemicals on board, applying water directly onto the fire was not an option. 2 fallen containers are now floating in the vicinity of the vessel. Two of the burning containers are storing hazardous potassium amyxalate. An emergency zone has been set up for 2 nautical miles surrounding the ship.
Europe's most active volcano, Italy's Mount Etna, began erupting in the early hours of Saturday morning, causing havoc for surrounding villages. Flights between Athens and London have had to be cancelled. Footage shows massive plumes of ash and steam rising into the air. The 3,330-meter high volcano has been treating locals to fantastic displays ever since it burst into life back in February, erupting more than 50 times this year. Its last major eruption occurred in 1992. The volcano is situated between the African and Eurasian tectonic plates and generates eruptions of varying degrees. It comes as the volcano on La Palma in the Canary Islands continues to cause chaos for locals with the unstoppable lava tsunamis.
And Russian and Chinese warships are holding their first ever joint patrols in the Pacific Ocean for the sake of maintaining of peace and stability. Russia's defense ministry released a statement on Saturday saying that the exercises between the two nations were conducted between the 17th and 23rd of this month. Moscow and Beijing staged several naval cooperation drills in the Sea of Japan earlier in October. They have cultivated closer military and diplomatic ties in recent years at a time when the relations with the West have soared. The naval maneuvers have been closely watched by Japan. A fleet of 10 vessels from China and Russia sailed through the Tuksugari Strait, separating Japan's main island and its northern islands of Hokkaido. The strait is regarded as international waters.
11 meetings in 3 days. That's Prime Minister Hun Sen's schedule this week as he attends a string of events on the agendas for the 38th and 39th ASEAN summits. The last day, Thursday, will see the Prime Minister receiving the ASEAN chairmanship gavel from outgoing Chairman Brunei, although Cambodia's official chairmanship begins only in January. EAC News reporter Reo Soko has the story.
It's meeting after meeting for Prime Minister Hun Sen. The 30th and 39th ASEAN summits both being held in tandem between Tuesday and Thursday. On Thursday, the Prime Minister will receive the ASEAN chairmanship gavel from Brunei's Sultan Haji Hassan al-Bolkiah. Cambodia will lead ASEAN throughout 2022. It will be the kingdom's third outing as ASEAN chair after 2002 and 2012. Foreign Ministry spokesman Khoi Kong has told EAC News that although Cambodia will receive the ASEAN gavel on Thursday, Brunei will remain in charge until the end of the year. The Prime Minister is delivering remarks to a total of 11 summit events this week, covering a range of topics, including the building of the ASEAN community, exchanging views on regional and international issues, and the bloc's response to COVID-19. The 30th and 39th ASEAN summits are being held under the theme, We Care, We Prepare, We Are Moving Forward. They're being attended by every ASEAN head of state except Myanmar. ASEAN leaders have already agreed to promote multilateralism, which includes the need to maintain unity, coherence, and resilience, the peaceful settlement of disputes, strengthening ASEAN centrality, reaffirming the ASEAN Indo-Pacific perspective, and the regional comprehensive economic partnership. They have also adopted 13 key documents. 3 of them are focused on digital transformation across the bloc, tackling the growing reality of climate change and the elimination of threats to children in the region. Reyes Soko, EAC News.
In breaking news, Prime Minister Hun Sen has announced the first step in the reopening of Cambodia's international borders to fully vaccinated tourists. On his Facebook page late on Tuesday afternoon, the Prime Minister announced that the Ministry of Tourism has decided that the first destinations to open will be Sihanoukville, its island of Koh Rong, and the Koh Kong resort town of Dara Sakor from Tuesday the 30th of November. The second stage of the country's reopening will be Siem Reap from January. In making the announcement, the Prime Minister stated that after suffering from COVID-19 for 2 years, Cambodia has finally announced the reopening of international tourism. What Cambodia is calling its vaccine tourism program will allow fully vaccinated tourists to arrive in the reopened area and remain there for 5 days before they are allowed to visit other parts of the country if a PCR test taken on the 4th day is negative for COVID-19. To qualify for the vaccine tourism program, tourists will first need to request an admission letter when they apply for their e-visa in their home country. They will need to provide a vaccination certificate at this point. Their accommodation will need to be booked and paid for in advance at hotels deemed part of the country's safe tourism program. They will also need health insurance as well as a negative PCR test issued within 72 hours of their departure. Information on their travel history in the 14 days before their arrival in the kingdom will also need to be submitted. On arrival in Cambodia, tourists will need to take a rapid test to confirm their COVID-19 status before they can start enjoying their holiday in the Kingdom of Wonder. Residents of the capital's Dangkor district have been caught up in flooding. At least 6 communes are experiencing severe flooding due to heavy rainfall and the release of water from the dam in Kampong Spu. The rainfall and the released water from that dam have all led to a sharp rise in the level of the Prek Not River. EAC News reporter Reo Soko has the details.
Deputy Governor of Phnom Penh's Dang Khao district, Chu Kim Sor, has warned residents to be extra vigilant with water levels continuing to rise. The river has burst its banks, swamping at least 6 communes. They are Dang Khao, Prek Kampos, Sak Sampo, Tien, Kung Noi, and Spien Khmer. The Ministry of Water Resources and Meteorology issued an alert on Monday that the current weather situation may result in flooding in 13 provinces and in the capital. It says that there is an active low-pressure system in the South China Sea, which will develop into a typhoon, reaching southern Vietnam on Wednesday before affecting Cambodia in the days that follow. Local authorities, along with the National Committee for Disaster Management, are now preparing to evacuate the most affected families of Dang Khao district, while provincial governments across the country continue to monitor their areas of responsibility in case rescue operations are needed. Rhea Soko, EAC News.
Now for a look at news making international headlines this Tuesday, the 26th of October.
Thousands of Sudanese pro-democracy protesters have streamed onto the streets of the capital to reject a military coup that has toppled the transitional government that had ruled the country since the ouster of longtime dictator Omar al-Bashir. The Sudan Doctors Committee has reported that security forces opened fire on protesters on Monday, killing at least 3 demonstrators and wounding another 80. Sudan's top military leader, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, has declared a state of emergency across the nation. He says he dissolved the government due to political quarrels that were threatening the security of the country. He says a provisional government would soon be appointed to lead the country to elections in July 2023. Footage shows people chanting slogans and burning tires on the streets after soldiers arrested most of the members of the Sudan's cabinet. Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok is under house arrest at an undisclosed location.
339 migrants have been rescued by the Italian Coast Guard in collaboration with European Union External Border Management Agency Frontex in a Romanian border police naval unit. The group had left eastern Libya and were traveling on a fishing boat when bad weather battered parts of southern Italy. The migrants were rescued off the coast of Calabria, which was hit by floods over the weekend. Data from the Italian Interior Ministry shows 52,665 migrants have arrived in Italy so far this year.
And a new development in the ongoing eruption on La Palma in Spain's Canary Islands. Another lava channel has appeared after a second cone of the volcano partially collapsed. It sent lava gushing downhill. Volcanologists say there's no way of telling when the eruption will end, with no data to indicate that volcanic activity in Campo Riviera is decreasing. It's suspected that the eruption could go on for months rather than weeks. Lava from the volcano has covered nearly 900 hectares of land, destroying 2,000 buildings. More than 7,000 people have had to evacuate their homes.
EAC News fully supports the Royal Government of Cambodia's preventative and administrative measures against COVID-19. But we need you to play your part in helping bring the 20 February community transmission event to an end. Wash your hands regularly, sanitize wherever possible. Keep an eye on your body temperature. Use the Stop COVID QR code and maintain a safe social distance. But above all, please, 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 wear a mask. Only together can we beat COVID-19. If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear. ASEAN member countries are to benefit from a $250 billion loan from Japan to assist with the region's fight against COVID-19 and its post-pandemic recovery. The announcement was made during Wednesday's 24th ASEAN-Japan Summit, one of the 11 meetings being attended by Prime Minister Hun Sen this week as part of the 38th and 39th ASEAN Summits. EAC News reporter Reo Soko has the story.
ASEAN leaders have all welcomed and thanked Japan for announcing the $250 billion loan. It will be allocated for COVID-19 disaster support across the region. This is in addition to Japan's previous assistance to ASEAN, including the provision of COVID-19 vaccines, $200 million for medical equipment and supplies, and its $50 million contribution to the ASEAN Center for Public Health and Disease Emergencies. Japan's Prime Minister Kishida Fumio says his country will continue to support ASEAN. The loan announcement came in response to a request by ASEAN heads of state for Japan to continue deepening and developing its strategic partnership while expanding cooperation in all fields, but most especially digitization, the regional economy, cultural development, and security. They have also discussed regional issues such as the South China Sea, Myanmar, and the Korean Peninsula. Japan has been a dialogue partner of ASEAN for 48 years. Leaders at Wednesday's summit agreed to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the ASEAN-Japan partnership in 2023. The 24th ASEAN-Japan Summit is just one of a series of events being attended by Prime Minister Hun Sen this week. The Prime Minister is also expected to participate in ASEAN dialogues with leaders from Australia, New Zealand, Russia, the EU, and India. The 30th and 39th ASEAN Summits come to an end on Thursday afternoon. Rhea Soko, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has announced that the royal government will help Vietnam in its fight against the pandemic. The kingdom is to donate 200,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccine to its neighbour on Friday. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko has more.
Secretary of State in the Ministry of Health and Chairwoman of the Commission for COVID-19 Vaccination, Ol Van Dien, has confirmed the donation. She will preside over the delivery in person at the Ba Vet Moc Bai border gate in Savai Rieng province on Friday morning. Currently, Vietnam has administered only one dose of vaccine to 53% of its population. Only 21% are fully vaccinated. Unlike Cambodia, the Vietnamese government has been reluctant to accept vaccines from China for long-standing political reasons. It has been researching a homegrown vaccine called Nanovax, but with delays and a lack of effective results, Hanoi has now decided to start distributing Chinese vaccines such as Sinovac, which is the kind Cambodia has the most of in stock. Vietnam will not be the first Asian country which Cambodia has helped in the fight against the pandemic. The kingdom recently donated 200,000 doses of Sinovac to Laos. Myanmar, Timor-Leste, and Nepal are other countries Cambodia has helped with cash, face masks, and medical supplies. Yuri Matosko, EAC News.
Rit Boris is a young and ambitious student who observed that mental issues between students are not being properly discussed, especially in light of the pandemic. He decided to act and created Mind Switch. It's an online platform aimed at helping teenagers and young adults cope with their mental health without being afraid to speak out about it. He sat down with EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko.
Mental issues in Cambodia come in many forms: trauma from war or family tragedy, the sheer exhaustion of those living in poverty. On top of that, the fast-pacing world of modernization can also create disconnections between generations, especially for students. The youth often suffer, not just with depressive thoughts, but also with anxiety, body issues, as well as pressures from studies, careers, and now the added stress associated with the pandemic. Ritty Bodies took the initiative and created the online platform Mind Switch to help students see mental health without stigma as an important part of a balanced life. Rich spoke to EAC News about his project, which was one of 13 mentorship projects selected by UNICEF from 150 applications.
Actually, Mind Switch project is under a program called Generation Future program that the program manager, her name is Lindsay. And it's under the UNICEF Cambodia. So the project starts from August to the end of the November. And I will share all the videos and actions from social media to all the audience here. We also try to demonstrate our project to the audience, especially to teenagers at the age between 14 to 25 on the World Children's Day, which happens on 16 November this year.
He says the inspiration for Mind Switch came from his own experiences with mental health.
Like less than years ago, I was a person who burned out myself, lost passion, I couldn't find myself, and I think it's such a really serious problem to heal it out. I want other teenagers and other youths that haven't faced it yet to avoid that problem like me. And instead of that, we have also another kind of mental health issue in Cambodia. It's not only for depressions or losing passions or burnout. We have like trauma or other things that people, especially teenagers, need to be aware of that. So yes, I came up with because I have experience. I have worked on that path already. So I want other teenagers to avoid repeat the same mistake like me.
Mind Switch is also aimed at helping the youth fully understand the benefits of good mental health.
I went to the riverside and I did a survey to 10 teenagers, and I asked them, what do you think about mental health in Cambodia? What came into your mind when we're talking about mental health? And about 80% of them, they said that mental health is about depression, commit suicide, and that's all. They don't know anything yet. And they said that it's kind of like a funny thing to talk, but actually it's not. In Cambodia, I have observed that the topic and the problem about the mental health and the depression start from like in 2018, as I remember, on 6th January, when a woman or a girl, a young girl, commits suicide. And the word depression is very popular and trending from that day until now. And some Facebook page, they post a meme or like a troll, like, oh, I'm very depressed, I want to commit suicide. They think it's like a funny thing to talk, but actually it's not.
He finished up with us with a special word for all students in Cambodia.
A quick message from me, from us, my message to everyone, that especially to teenagers, like mental health is not just for depression or anxiety, but everything that we are thinking is all about the mental health. For example, if you want to do anything with a good result, you need to have a good mental health also. So don't be thinking in a negative way. Switch your mind to make a positive thinking, because if you have a good thinking in your mindset, everything will be possible in the future. That's it. Thank you so much.
Mind Switch can be found on Facebook, while UNICEF has created a group called We Are Generation Future on the same social platform. It provides students with free education resources, online training, and professional support for personal development. Yuri Matosco, EAC News.
Now for a look at news making international headlines this Wednesday, the 27th of October.
3 people have been killed, including a hospitalized suspect, and 4 others have been wounded in a shooting on Idaho's Boise Town Square. The Ada County coroner has identified the shooter as 27-year-old local Jacob Berquist. Boise Police Chief Ryan Lee says Berquist was known to both police and mall security, although he didn't appear to have an arrest record in the city. Security guards had reported him in the past, though, for disruptive or disorderly behavior. The 4 wounded included 2 women who sustained what were described as no life-threatening injuries, and a 60-year-old woman who was struck inside a vehicle, possibly as the police and the suspect exchanged gunfire. A Boise police officer who was threatened and released was hit by glass from the window of the vehicle he was using. The motive for the shooting remains unclear, but it appears it followed an altercation with a mall security guard. One shopper told police that he was in the food court when he heard 5 to 8 shots ring out, and a security personnel ushered him out before police arrived.
A rare cyclonic storm has hit the southern Italian island of Sicily, causing widespread flooding around the city of Catania, turning streets and squares into rivers and lakes. At least 2 people have been killed. Footage shows cars submerged as powerful floods engulf a road. Italian weather experts say the area is being pounded by a rare Mediterranean hurricane known as Medicani. The Civil Protection Emergency Relief Body has issued another of its highest red alerts for the northern and eastern parts of southern Calabria, warning of potential risk to life and damage to property.
And the Greek Coast Guard has confirmed that 4 migrants, 3 of them children, drowned on Tuesday after a boat in which they and 23 others were trying to cross from Turkey to Greece sank. The boat sank off the Greek islands of Chios. This is one of the main routes into the European Union for asylum seekers crossing from Turkey in overcrowded rubber boats. 22 people were rescued and 1 person is believed to be missing. Footage shows the rescue operation, with 1 migrant being pulled to safety from choppy waters and several migrants covered in thermal blankets aboard the Coast Guard's rescue boat. 10 vessels and 2 helicopters assisted in the rescue operation.
National Assembly President Heng Samrin says Cambodia's relationship with the US will continue to develop. He made the remark at the National Assembly on Thursday morning during a visit by US Ambassador W. Patrick Murphy. Relations between the US and Cambodia have been strained in recent months, but after this week's ASEAN-US summit, things appear to be getting back on track. National Assembly President Heng Samrin welcomed US Ambassador W. Patrick Murphy on Thursday morning. Heng Samrin praised the ambassador for his efforts in carrying out his diplomatic mission over the past 2 years, saying he had boosted cooperation in many fields between the two countries and promoted progress. He told the ambassador that he believes the more than 70-year relationship between Phnom Penh and Washington will continue to develop more fruitfully. In turn, the ambassador congratulated the royal government on its vaccine rollout and its gradual reopening of the economy. He told Heng Samrin that the US has been active in Cambodia's health sector, most especially during the COVID-19 outbreak, with the US donating more than 1 million doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccine through the COVAX initiative. The meeting ended with the National Assembly president thanking the US for providing development assistance to Cambodia, while encouraging Washington to continue providing scholarships and training opportunities for young Cambodians, with the kingdom prioritizing a knowledge-based economy. Prime Minister Hun Sen has symbolically received the ASEAN chairmanship gavel from Brunei. Cambodia will actually assume the chairmanship in January. Thursday afternoon's online event marked the end of a busy week for the Prime Minister, attending no fewer than 11 events and meetings related to the 38th and 39th ASEAN summits. EAC News reporter Reo Soko has the details.
A symbolic end to a week of dialogue. Prime Minister Hun Sen receives the ASEAN gavel from Brunei's Sultan Haji Hassan Al Bolkiah. It symbolizes the handing over of the ASEAN chairmanship, although Cambodia's tenure will begin only in January. 2022 will be the third time Cambodia has been ASEAN chair after 2002 and 2012. It also comes at a pivotal time for the region as it slowly reopens after 2 years of COVID-19 restrictions and gets its respective economies back on track. The pandemic has been a theme running through the various ASEAN summits, which started on Tuesday. Not just within ASEAN itself, but also with its dialogue partners such as Australia, China, the European Union, India, Japan, South Korea, Russia, and the United States. Multilateralism and peace have also been recurring themes in the Prime Minister's remarks. Cambodia was the last country to become a member of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations in 1999. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Hun Sen urged ASEAN leaders to fast-track the entry of Timor-Leste. It has been waiting to be an ASEAN member since 2011. By building stronger relationships with ASEAN and its partners, the Prime Minister hopes this will help the kingdom's economy bounce back stronger than ever. Key to this is the country's reopening, which the Prime Minister reiterated on Thursday will be done in stages, starting with the vaccine tourism program, which gets underway at the end of November in Sihanoukville and Darasakor in Koh Kung. Siem Reap will be able to welcome fully vaccinated tourists back from January. Reyes Soko, EAC News.
Cambodia's Disability Action Council is encouraging governors around the country to enhance inclusiveness for persons with disabilities. The General Secretariat of the National Council for Persons with Disabilities partnered with the United Nations Development Programme on Thursday morning to organise planning skills training for the Disability Action Councils in 5 of the Kingdom's provinces. The head of the Australia-Cambodia Cooperation Programme for Sustainable and Equitable Services also attended the meeting. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko has more.
Thursday's morning training event was opened by Secretary of State for the Ministry of Social Affairs, the Secretary General of Disability Action Council, M. Chan Makara. The planning skills training was for Disability Council members of Kampong Spoon, Kampong Cham, Tibong Khmer, Siem Reap, and Baton Bang. According to M. Chan Makara, the planning skills training will help the kingdom develop specific cooperation plans when it comes to requesting funds from provincial and municipal administrations for projects and upgrades designed to improve the quality of life for persons with disabilities in the kingdom.
Indeed, the remarkable achievements of the disability sector in recent years have been achieved thanks to the efforts and commitment of the Royal Government of Cambodia to ensure the quality of life of persons with disabilities are improving day by day. Despite the circumstances of the spread of COVID-19, the disability sector is still doing well.
Thursday training focused on key topics, including understanding a plan, recalling roles and responsibilities, and developing resource thinking for monitoring and evaluation. Head of the Australia-Cambodian Cooperation Program for Sustainable and Equitable Services, Anne Ruth Kiev, was also present. She hopes that Thursday's training will contribute to the development of national strategic plans as well as plans focused on persons with disabilities. Yuri Matosko, EAC News.
Well, now for a look at news making international headlines this Thursday, the 28th of October.
Dozens of indigenous people have been arrested after mass protests in Ecuador. Demonstrators are unhappy at economic policies of the country's conservative president Guilherme Lasso, days after he raised gasoline prices. 5 police officers were injured and 2 members of the armed forces were being held by a community in northern Quito, but were unharmed. 37 people were detained for blocking roads. The Ecuador Confederation of Indigenous Nations has confirmed that demonstrators had been injured but did not give a figure. Police used tear gas in the capital amid clashes with protesters, while officers on horseback blocked the entrance to the plaza that had been the marchers' destination. Elsewhere, indigenous groups blocked the roads that connect Quito to the country's north, and others in various Andean provinces were closed. Lasso, an ex-banker who took office in May, scrapped planned incremental rises in gasoline chargers, meant to eventually align with international causes, following pressure by indigenous and other organizations. But unions and other groups want Lasso to freeze prices at lower rates and exempt sectors hit hard by the pandemic. Gasoline costs have risen significantly since Lasso's predecessor, Lenin Moreno, began monthly increases in May 2020.
Where mighty glaciers once spilled into Swiss valleys like frozen rivers of ice, a residue of gray scree in boulders remains, spliced through with raging streams. The new Swiss glacier inventory reports that glaciers in Switzerland are shrinking rapidly due to climate change. More than 500 Swiss glaciers have already vanished. The government said back in 2019 that 90% of the remaining 1,500 will go by the end of the century if nothing is done to cut carbon emissions. The Rhone Glacier, one of the 50 biggest and dominant glaciers in the European Alps, covering a significant part of Switzerland, has lost more than 1.5 kilometers since the mid-19th century, leaving only 7.8 kilometers of the frozen river remaining. What's left is melting dramatically. Experts believe climate change could disturb water cycles throughout Europe and will have an indirect consequence on wildlife and plants. The retreat of the Rhone Glacier is expected to have a major impact on water levels, possibly raising them initially as the ice melts, but depleting them long-term. With regard to adaptation and transition to cleaner energy, Switzerland is slowly embracing wind power as an alternative. Europe's highest wind farm with 3 turbines at more than 2,200 meters above sea level was opened in 2016. It provides power to nearly 3,000 households.
And as technology soars, a Japanese startup hopes to persuade wealthy consumers to swap their supercar for a $680,000 hover bike, which went on sale on Tuesday. Meanwhile, in Rome, a prototype of German aviation startup Volocopter's electrical air taxi went on display at Rome's Fiumicino Airport on Wednesday, as the airport looks ahead to 2024, when they hope the public will be able to travel on the battery-powered passenger aircraft. The flying taxi, which looks like a tiny helicopter, has an electrical vertical takeoff and landing in so-called vertiports. It has a luggage compartment and a capacity of 2, giving travelers an emission-free way to beat traffic. It runs on 18 motors that are powered by 90 rechargeable batteries. Volocopter says it is 4 times quieter than an actual helicopter. It will be operational in 3 years and able to take passengers from the airport to the center of the Eternal City in around 15 minutes, a journey that currently takes around 45 minutes by taxi.
EAC News fully supports the Royal Government of Cambodia's preventative and administrative measures against COVID-19. But we need you to play your part in helping bring the 20 February community transmission event to an end. Wash your hands regularly, sanitize wherever possible. Keep an eye on your body temperature. Use the Stop COVID QR code and maintain a safe social distance. But above all, please, 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 wear a mask. Only together can we beat COVID-19. If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts, and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear. As expected, Newcastle's new owners have been quick to boot underperforming manager Steve Bruce, and Barcelona's Ronald Koeman must be wondering if he'll be next to go job hunting. He just can't seem to catch a break, with his side going down 2-1 to Real Madrid in the first Clásico of the season on Sunday. It was the first time post-pandemic Barcelona were playing in front of a capacity crowd at the Nou Camp. 86,442 fans crammed into the stadium, and a defeat was not what they came to see. A sensational strike from defender David Alaba and a late goal from Lucas Vázquez gave Real Madrid the full 3 points. Barcelona did manage to control possession in the first half, but just didn't make enough of it. Ronald Koeman made 3 changes after half-time, but none of it was enough. In the post-match media briefing, there was no hiding for Koeman.
Of course, we are disappointed, all of us, because of the final outcome, and it must be like this. We must be sad and disappointed, but now we have to analyze the match and see what we've done well and what was correct. I think we challenged the team, we were up for it, and we had the support of the crowd until the last minute of the match, and that's it. We don't have time available to stand there idly. No, because on Wednesday we have another match.
The win put Real Madrid top of La Liga with 20 points. Barcelona are languishing in 8th place with just 5 points. Ronald Koeman knows he has to turn things around and fast if he's to keep his job. Cambodia's under-23 football team have been beaten 4-0 by Japan in their under-23 Asian Cup qualifier. The match was played on Tuesday morning at the J Village Stadium in Hirono. It was a major come-down after last week's surprise win over Hong Kong. Cambodia went into Tuesday's match on top of Group K thanks to that 4-2 win over Hong Kong on Sunday. While they played with determination against their hosts, Cambodia was simply outclassed on Tuesday morning. Japan's goals coming at regular intervals throughout the match, and they were 4-0 up by the time the final whistle was blown. The win puts Japan on top of the group and into the finals in Uzbekistan next year, but Cambodia will still join them. As runner-up in the group, they will still go through, but that's assuming Hong Kong don't beat Japan when they face each other on Thursday. It's all down to the maths over the next few days, but if Japan do beat Hong Kong, then Cambodia are through to the finals of the Asian Football Confederation's Under-23 Asian Cup. IOC President Thomas Bach believes Beijing is ready to host the 2022 Winter Olympics with 100 days to go until the opening ceremony. In an interview with IOC Newsroom, Bach says everything is set for Beijing to become the first city ever to host both the Summer and Winter Games. Beijing is ready, even down to the animation and its mascots. Olympic swimming pools have been drained to be replaced by Olympic-size ice rinks. Construction teams have been working around the clock to prepare some of the most impressive venues the Winter Olympics have ever seen. Not bad for a city that is hosting its first ever Winter Olympics, barely 14 years after it hosted the Summer Games in 2008. Over in Lausanne, Switzerland, at the headquarters of the International Olympic Committee, its president Thomas Bach says despite concerns about the ongoing pandemic, China is on track.
The determination of China and the Chinese people is impressive. I think China does not only want to contain the virus, it wants to eradicate the virus. And this is being done with a great efficiency, with very strict measures. And this, of course, will also be transferred to the Olympic Winter Games, so that everybody participating in these Olympic Winter Games can rely on safe organization of these games and can all have all the confidence in these preparations and in the COVID countermeasures.
Tickets for the games are being sold only to spectators from mainland China. Any unvaccinated athletes will have to spend 21 days in quarantine ahead of the games. Even fully vaccinated participants will enter what is called a closed-loop management system. Think of it as another Olympic bubble. This will cover all games-related areas and stadiums, as well as accommodation, catering, and the opening and closing ceremonies, all served by a dedicated transport system. All domestic and international participants, as well as the Olympic Games workforce, will be tested for COVID-19 every single day. The Games will last 16 days in total, with the opening ceremony set for Friday, the 4th of February. Paris Saint-Germain star Neymar says his overarching goal is to lift the Champions League trophy again alongside Lionel Messi, but this time as teammates at PSG. The pair were playing for Barcelona when they first managed the feat back in 2015. Neymar is clearly enjoying his time with Paris Saint-Germain. He's been with them since 2017 and says he was delighted when Messi followed him earlier this year. With a stacked side that also includes forward Kylian Mbappe and defender Sergio Ramos, PSG have since become one of the most talked about clubs in Europe. Neymar says that has put a target on their backs.
The toughest part of being on these teams is that no matter what match you are playing, the other teams are always motivated. They always want to win and to beat you. So I think, despite the fact that we have a great team with fantastic players, I think we have to take the pitch as if it is the last match of our lives every day. So it's one at a time. Because if we are good on paper, we have to show that we are also good on the pitch. Because it doesn't mean anything if you got a great squad, but the team doesn't win. I think that would be a pity. So Our squad today is one of the most talked about in the world, and we need to prove why we get all that attention.
Como equipe individual, acho que
Neymar's ambitions, however, go beyond club level. He's busy chasing Brazilian great Pele's goal record for the Brazilian national team. Neymar currently sits at 70 international goals, just 7 shy of Pele's record of 77. The goal scorer has also clarified a recent statement he made in a documentary that next year's World Cup in Qatar would be his last. He says what he actually meant was, you never know what tomorrow holds. As was widely anticipated, Barcelona has sacked Ronald Koeman after Wednesday's 1-0 La Liga defeat at Rayo Vallecano. The deeply unpopular coach has been responsible for a long losing streak and only on Wednesday said he believed he still had a future at the club. Not so much. Barcelona issued a statement within hours of Wednesday's game saying that it had relieved Ronald Koeman of his duties as first-team coach. Wednesday night's loss was the final straw. Koeman was given the news directly by club president Juan Laporta. He'll say his goodbyes to the club during a training session on Thursday. Barcelona are 9th in La Liga on 15 points from 10 games, 6 points behind leaders Real Madrid, who beat them 2-1 at the Nou Camp last Sunday. They're not doing much better in the Champions League either, 3rd in their group with just 3 points from 3 matches. Barcelona are 5 times European champions, and the results mark the first time in the club's history that they failed to score in their opening 2 European games. Koeman spent 6 years with Barca as a player before being brought back as coach in 2020. Now that he's gone, the search is on for his replacement. Local media reports suggest that former midfielder Xavi Hernandez, who is currently in charge of Al Sadd in Qatar, and Belgium coach Roberto Martinez are the front-runners. It would seem there's still uncertainty about how Australia will be treating unvaccinated tennis players for January's Australian Open. On Wednesday, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison said that unvaccinated players would be allowed to enter the country if they underwent 14 days of quarantine. But that's not what his Immigration Minister Alex Hawke said last week. According to him, players would have to be fully vaccinated. There's even been talk of granting permits to unvaccinated players so that they can avoid quarantine. But that's been slammed by the state of Victoria, where the tournament will be played. At the moment, the situation is as clear as mud.
Just who will be playing here in January and under what arrangements is anyone's guess. Australia just can't seem to make its mind up about whether unvaccinated players, and there are lots of them, will even be allowed into the country to play in the year's first Grand Slam. Prime Minister Scott Morrison spoke to reporters on Wednesday and contradicted his own immigration minister, who wants everyone entering the country to be fully vaccinated.
Well, the same rules have to apply to everyone. If I wasn't double vaccinated, when I got home from Glasgow, I'd be doing 2 weeks of quarantine in Sydney. So the same rules apply to everyone, whether you're a Grand Slam winner, a Prime Minister, a business traveller, a student or whoever. Same rules. The states will set the rules about the quarantine as they are.
There's even been talk of granting permits to unvaccinated players or those who refuse to reveal their vaccination status, like world number 1 Novak Djokovic. Those permits would waive quarantine rules, but that's been flatly rejected by Victoria Premier Daniel Andrews, who is vehemently opposed to letting unvaccinated people into the country without undergoing quarantine.
We've got I think, the greatest tennis facility in the world. Victorian taxpayers have supported the redevelopment, which is still ongoing, of that facility. It is, I think, the best Grand Slam venue anywhere in the world. That's what all the international tennis people tell me every year when they're here for it. So I think it's highly unlikely that anybody else is going to be hosting that event. We will be hosting that event, but we will not be applying for an exemption for unvaccinated players to come here. And that is the only fair thing to do.
Victoria's position is a blow for Tennis Australia, who won the strongest field possible for the tournament. Australia's borders have been effectively sealed for 18 months due to the pandemic, although authorities have approved the travel exemptions for special cases.
Well, Phnom Penh City Hall announced on Thursday that the capital's bars, KTVs and nightclubs would remain shuttered for a further 14 days. The easing of other restrictions in recent weeks has given everyone a sigh of relief to know that the new normal is on its way. Restaurants were particularly pleased earlier this month when the ban on alcohol sales was lifted and the limit on gatherings was raised from 15 to 50. It's all great news for the Drum Restaurant and Pub in Ras Sai Kyaw, where the stage has been quiet for the past 8 months. But that's all set to change from Monday next week. EAC News reporter Yuri Matosko has the story.
The popular drum will be beating again next week. Its band will be back on the stage thanks to the lifting of the ban on the serving of alcohol and increasing the number of people who can gather for an event. The stage has been quiet since the start of the 20 February community transmission event. The decision was taken to close the popular restaurant at night, but now the team at the Drum Restaurant and Pub is ready to welcome patrons back to enjoy the tunes of a live band over a great meal and a bottle of beer or a glass of wine. The Drum's general manager sat down with EAC News and spoke of his excitement for the return of nightlights and music.
We are excited to welcome our customer come to have full entertainment with good quality services. We have a good food, we have a good drinks inside here, and we have a live band. We have a popular singer. So this full entertainment, we provide a premium service to our customer. Besides this, we never forget about the protection with the COVID-19. Customer come, they need to show us the card, the vaccine cards, and our staff wearing masks. And also we arrange the table and chair with proper distance to ensure customer enjoy and feeling comfortable in the Drum Restaurant and Pub.
He says the government's vaccination campaign has created trust that the country is finally on track for a new normal.
Our government already controls by vaccines, injections. And currently, people become more confident on our government. So people become more confident to go outside for breakfast, lunch, and dinner better than stay at home as before. With our Drum and Restaurant, Pub and Restaurant, we expect our customer will come again to enjoy with breakfast, with lunch, especially dinner, that we provide full excitement and premium service to them. And one more thing, I would like to motivate and also suggest to our customer, please trust us for reopening that we will provide full safety service.
The Drum Restaurant and Pub is located on Street 598 opposite the Phnom Penh Police Commissariat in Ras Sai Kyaw. It's open every day from 6 in the morning until midnight. Yuri Matosko, EAC News.
Thank you for watching the Weekly Roundup here on the EAC News channel. More from the EAC News team in the Daily Roundup Monday night at 8. From me, Andrew Barnes-Roberts. Until the next time, it's goodbye.